Just going to read a little bit about my actual prosecution, and then let's have a short conversation. At the beginning of my trial, the trial in which I am cast in the lead role and somebody else plays the prosecutor, the judge tells the jury, this case arises from a dispute between two people about a parking space. Dramatic pause. Neither one of them drives a car. The newly sworn in jurors have put on their serious faces, but a couple of them look amused. I would think it was kind of funny, too, if it was happening to somebody else. I joke about it at happy hour after a long day in court. First, a quick biography emphasizing the items that make an arrest at age 33 unlikely. Yale College and Harvard Law School, both cum laude, prestigious clerkship with a federal judge, cushy job at high-powered Washington, D.C. law firm, then federal prosecutor in the most elite unit in the Department of Justice. Now the counter story, emphasizing the items that make lack of arrest by age 33 surprising. Raised by a single mom in poor black neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. When not at work, dressed in the current fashion like a thug. Nice eyes chip on my shoulder, afflicted with the black man's thing for respect by any means necessary. Don't like the police much, even though I work with them every day. Can be a smartass. So the chapter goes on to tell this story about this woman named Detroit. That was her real name, who was my neighbor, who was a snitch for the police. In addition to that, commandeered a parking space that belonged to my apartment that I craftily decided to rent out because I didn't have a car. She didn't like that because she was renting out the parking space as well. And so she started leaving these threatening notes on the car of the person who I rented it to. And one day I came out and saw that she'd vandalized. Actually, I woke up, looked out the window, and saw that she'd vandalized the car. So I went outside to look at it. And I'm just going to read you what happened then. First, I go out to Donna's car to inspect it for damage. I remember from my prosecutor's training that D.C. police take claims of destruction to cars more seriously than other kinds of minor crimes. The joke among prosecutors was, if your boyfriend beat you up, don't say, he hit me and I'm bleeding when you call 911. The police will take hours to come. Say, somebody put sugar in my gas tank, and they'll be there in 3 minutes. Donna's car didn't look seriously damaged. There was just sawdust all over it. I'm headed back inside to call the police when all of a sudden there's no longer a need to do so. 3 police cars, sirens blaring, flew into the parking lot. Several cops jumped out yelling at me, put your hands in the air, motherfucker, lean against the car. Then came the words I'd spent my whole life trying to avoid. You're under arrest. What? Why? I was in a state of disbelief. This had to be a joke, simple assault. Detroit had called 911 and said that somebody spread sawdust on her porch. She claimed that as she was sweeping it up, I ran up to her and pushed her and she fell down. She was now suffering from back pain. That's ridiculous, I told the police. They should call Donna to get the history of the whole dispute. And anyway, who would go anywhere near Detroit with these 2 German shepherds standing guard? The police weren't listening. My arresting officer was a muscular, bald man who looked like a Nazi if the Nazis had accepted applications from Puerto Ricans. So I played my trump card. I'm a prosecutor. The cop looked interested. I hoped this would be an opening. I needed one badly. I couldn't get arrested. I didn't go to Harvard Law School to end up just another nigger with a record. I showed the officer my Justice Department ID. He inspected it carefully. Then he smirked and said, so I'm sure you know this already. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be provided for you. And so then I'm just going to read the kind of cutting to the chase. Has the jury reached an unanimous verdict, the judge asked. Yes, the forewoman says. Mr. Butler, please rise. As Michelle, my lawyer, stands up with me, she touches my hand and whispers, I did my best. You never know what a jury is going to do, but we gave it our best. What is the verdict of the jury? Your Honor, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. It's like a movie. I hug Michelle, and my friends in the courtroom cheer. The Nazi-looking police officer stalks out of the courtroom like he's mad. The judge smiles at me and says, Mr. Butler, you're free to go. I want to say that the prosecutors hung their heads, but they probably just packed up and left. That's what I did when I lost a case. They certainly didn't apologize. I never did either when I got a not guilty verdict. Usually, I blame the jurors. My story is different from the 14 million people who get arrested every year in the U.S. I had the best defense attorney in the city because I could afford her. I knew how to appeal to a jury. Hell, I prosecuted people in the very courtroom where I was being prosecuted. So in addition to carefully preparing my testimony, I knew to make sure that my haircut was conservative and my shoes were shined. I knew how to look like the kind of African American a jury would not want to send to jail. I was innocent, by the way. During the process, that fact seemed rather beside the point. Our criminal justice system works like a meat grinder. You're supposed to proceed in orderly fashion from arrest to guilty plea to sentencing. More than 90% of criminal cases are resolved just that way. Sometimes I still hate the woman who falsely accused me. She tried to destroy me. I was innocent, really. Maybe you don't completely believe me either. That's another effect of my prosecution. I'm not as innocent as I once was. I have a record. We need our criminal justice system to understand Detroit, she did a terrible thing. That's different, however, from saying that we should respond as if she's a terrible human being. She appeared to have some serious mental health issues. She thought that she had to get back at a pompous lawyer who ruined her little part-time hustle. She needed something validated in what she did, and she did what she thought she had to do. She's pathetic, more than she's evil. What she did could have destroyed a less privileged person. As for me, I kept my job, my friends, most of my social status. In some ways, the experience was useful. It made a man out of me, a black man. I now share a bond with lots of people from whom I used to feel disconnected. So those are the places I let myself go. I don't dwell too long on other stuff because it still hurts. I never told my mother. She'll find out when she reads this. In the African American community, it's a big thing when a mom can brag that she never had to go to the courthouse. I don't doubt that my mother would have been incredibly supportive and sympathetic. Ma's got no love for the police. She still quakes with anger when she talks about the time my stepfather, then 65, got into a minor car accident with a vehicle driven by a white man, and the cops ordered my stepfather to get in the back seat of the car while they'll talk to the white driver. Still, if my mother had known, she would have insisted on coming to the trial, and I couldn't have that. I've seen too many black mothers seated in the courtroom in the row behind their sons, crying. I didn't want to see my mother in that place. I would prefer that her memory of Superior Court be of me in trial, not on trial. I don't know what I'm ashamed of. I do know that my arrest and prosecution hurt me in ways I still haven't touched and probably never will. We need our criminal justice system to understand all of that. Thank you.